Welcome to this ATA Insights webinar. Thank you for your ongoing interest and support of our webinar program. Today's session will begin in 2 minutes. ATA Insights Webinars is an online platform for the dissemination of professional renewable energy knowledge across international borders. Our aim is to democratize access to information, for innovation to spread faster, and to make the industry more competitive. And we do this through our online sessions, open to all our members. Every year we do more than 100 sessions with over 250 speakers, 50,000 attendees from more than 50 countries. To participate in the session today, use the chat on the right-hand side to introduce yourself, your company, and where you're joining from. Under the screen you will find the Q&A box, where you can send your questions for the speakers. We will get to as many as we can today. We're recording this session and we will send you a link to the materials in a few days. Please consider supporting our content creation for the webinar program. Contact us on the email on screen.
Right. Can I come in now, I think?
Yes, Moses, please.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Moses Mengu. I'll be your moderator for this webinar this morning. And what we're going to talk about is RePower, renewable energies to power the development of the African green transition. I would share my screen. So RePower is to improve the renewables penetration through plug-and-play microgrids in Africa. My presentation is in 3 parts. First, I would introduce my fellow speakers. Then I would present shortly the concept of RePower and a brief presentation of my organization and our role in RePower. The speakers today are members of a consortium that was formed to prepare a proposal answering one of the EU calls for Horizon 2020, dealing with the green transition in Africa. Today, there would be panelists or speakers from Africa Greentec, Katarina Omelin, who would present their concept. Then Mr. Rohit Nagargoje from Marsh Mix, and will be helped by Hadiza Katagum from the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency, who would present on the African scene. So what is the motivation for RePower? Today, 970 million Africans lack access to clean cooking. These are figures from the International Energy Agency. Achieving universal access to clean cooking fuels and technologies by 2030 requires shifting 130 million people away from dirty cooking fuels each year. This is a mammoth fact. Electricity definitely is the backbone of Africa's new energy systems, and this will be powered increasingly by renewables. Unfortunately, Africa has only 1% installed capacity of PV, recognizing the fact that 60% of the best solar resources globally are in Africa. If you look to the right of the screen, there is a figure that shows the current composition of the different energy sources, energy supply in Africa. you may think there are only 4 bars. The blue one at the top is coal. Next is natural gas. The yellow one is biofuels. And the last bar there is oil. What is missing is renewable energies. And actually it's there in the green bar between the blue and the yellow. So this is the proportion of renewables still in the African energy mix. So what we are trying to do in RePower is to increase this proportion of renewable energy. Our concept of RePower, if you take a small African village that needs electricity, you have the community maybe with some home systems at the top of it. These are the local communities you can see in the middle of the diagram. The community has some needs. It may have a water pump that is used for irrigation purposes. There would be some farms with processing of food and so forth. And all these would have their needs for electricity. What we're trying to do here is that to meet these needs through the national grid would take ages. In fact, the International Energy Agency estimates that to connect every African village and to get access to electricity by 2030 will require an investment of $25 billion every year for up to 2030, just to connect a little fraction of those without electricity. So using the national grid to connect is not the way out. And the concept of RePower is to develop plug and play systems that can easily be rolled out all across Africa much cheaply, 7 off-grid areas, underserved areas, and so forth. The core of our technology are the components you see here. To the left are the PV panels, and then to the extreme right is the CHP, the combined heat and power system derived from biomass. Then running the whole system is the brain of the microgrid in the middle there, which is the battery energy storage system of the grid, comprising the electronic control systems and the electronics control and then the storage system. As a microgrid, it can also be linked with the national grid. So to the bottom left is our concept that when the grid comes around and it's cheaper to link it to the microgrid, you can do so. So this is the concept of the microgrid. And what is plug and play then? The plug and play means that all these components comprising the microgrid, the panels, the community home systems, the CHP, the battery, and the other control systems are all linked in a plug and play fashion. Each of them can operate independently if one is out of fashion. So you can connect them, you can scale them to suit the needs of the community. So if there is a community of 10,000 people, this can be scaled down to match what the community wants. So the whole system can be configured to match the needs of the community. Briefly, this is the concept, and my colleagues would expand on this later. So let me briefly talk about my own institute, the Danish Technological Institute, and our role in the plug and play concept. We are part of the consortium that designed this concept. There are 15 partners in the consortium. And as I said, we're answering to the European Union Horizon Europe call for 2021. The members represent the entire value chain from the PV to the community. So we have universities that will do user need studies. We have economists that will do the business models. We have people who would do the regulation, the standards and regulations and so forth. So the entire group is covered, but unfortunately we can't present everything today. So we would only present the part that deals with the PV and then the CHP and the needs in Africa. So what is the Danish Technological Institute? We are one of the largest research organization in Northern Europe, directly working for industry. We have about over 1,000 engineers and scientists located in campuses across Denmark. Here you would find the main areas of our activities in agricultural technology, building and construction, environmental technology, meat research. We have one of the biggest meat research institutes actually in the world. Then materials, high-tech materials mainly, and then production and innovation, including robotics and innovation management. The division that is taking part in this project is the Energy and Climate division. And the facility that the division is bringing into the play is what we call the Energy Flex Lab. The Energy Flex Lab is a configuration of different facilities across the institute's campuses that are linked together in a system able to test microgrids and energy systems from pocket size to city size. So this is the a grid simulator system with all the different components, panels, battery systems, EV chargers, a data center. It can be linked to microgrids operating across the world for data collection and analysis. Seen from the air, this is how it looks like. The different components are located in different buildings. And across the country, on the other side of the country, 400 kilometers away, is what we call an energy flex house. This is an experimental house, an office building, and a residential unit, which operate normally as any normal office or residential building with components inside that are linked to the Energy Flex Lab for data collection and analysis. So this is available. This is an experimental building, and people can bring in their equipment or materials for testing. We have an engine facility for fuel testing and gas emission reduction and so forth. Finally, we have a battery and electrical systems that is capable of analyzing everything to do with batteries, from cars to storage systems. So briefly, this is the Danish Technological Institute. I will stop sharing now. And if there are any questions, I will take them during the Q&A session. So what I would do now is to call upon the first speaker, Hadiza from the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency to talk briefly about the needs in Africa and what they do in their organization. So Hadiza, I would give the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Moses. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Hadiza Katagum, and I work with the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency under a program called the Nigerian Electrification Program, which I'll elaborate on later in the presentation. So I'm here to present on the mini-grid policies, regulatory, and socio-economic benefits of mini-grids with a focus on Nigeria. So to start off with, I just wanted to get a snapshot of what the situation is on ground in Nigeria pertaining the electricity industry. So right now we have 80 million people lacking access to electricity or the grid in Nigeria. with a current estimated demand peak of 25,000 and an installed capacity of 16,384. Currently, we're generating 12,500, but only 3,800 is being distributed around the country. And we have an urban population access rate of 86%, but a rural population rate of 34%. And our off-grid versus our on-grid capacity is at 34%. So there's a lot of gap that needs to be bridged in the electricity supply within the country. So I'm just going to brief us through mini-grid policies that were established for the past 20 years, for the past 15 years or so. So I'm just going to brief on each one. So starting with the Electric Power Sector Reform Act in Nigeria, which was established in 2005, and it brought about the creation of NERC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the REA, which is the organization I work in, the Rural Electrification Agency. It also brought about the establishment of the unbundling of the Nigerian Power Authority and privatized the sector as well. And in 2006, the Renewable Electricity Guideline was established by the Ministry of Power, which was basically a guideline to the visions and policies to be established by the country pertaining to renewable electricity. And a mandate within that guideline was to ensure at least 5% of total electricity generated was from a renewable source. In 2015, the federal government established the regulations on feed-in tariffs for renewable electricity, which obliged DISCOs, that's the distribution companies within Nigeria, to source at least 50% of their powers from renewable sources. In 2016, NERC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is the main regulatory body in the country for electricity, established the mini-grid regulation, which provides a guideline for all mini-grid related projects within the country. And the guideline is mainly aimed at projects up to 1 megawatts, which is the definition of mini-grid within the NERC. Within the same year, the National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy was established as well. And the SE4O action agenda was established in Nigeria or adapted in Nigeria, which I'll brief on the next slide. In 2020, Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan was launched in response to the COVID pandemic that occurred, unfortunately. And within that plan, CBN, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, launched a 140 billion naira program, which is a loan program within the country for mini-grid projects and other solar projects. And it's targeted at providing 5 million new solar connections across the country. So the SE4 agenda, which the government adopted, is to target at least 10 gigawatts by 2020 and 30 gigawatts by 2030 for on-grid, and 8 gigawatts for off-grid power by 2030. It was estimated that at least 3.5 billion per annum will be needed to establish this. And currently the government is working with various financial institutions around the world, so World Bank, AFDB, African Development Bank, GIZ, and USAID, and various other organizations in order to bring about solutions to the power deficit. So just a brief look into the main regulatory bodies in the country. So as I've mentioned before, we have the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is one of the most important, or if not the most important. So they monitor and regulate all activities with the electricity industry and ensure compliance with market rules and operating guidelines, which was established in 2016. We have the Nigerian Electricity Management Services, NEMSA, who ensure electrical installations are in compliance with the Nigerian Grid Code and the Nigerian Electricity Supply Standards. So a permit is certification. They carry out inspections, NEMSA, and certification is required from them. And then we have the Federal Ministry of Environment, who ensure environmental and social protections and of natural resources and conservation, are adhered to. And through them, you have to get an ESI, which is the environmental, social, and impact assessment, and a certification at that. And then we have the Federal Ministry of Power, which are in charge of policymaking arm of the government. So just an overview brief of the Nigerian Electrification Project. So it's one of the programs established to bridge the deficit or the gap within the country. So it's a total of 550 million loan from World Bank and African Development Bank, with the aim of providing power through 5 main components. So we have the solar hybrid mini-grid component, the standalone solar home systems, energizing education program, energy efficient equipment and productive use appliances, and technical assistance for the program. So I'm mainly focusing on the solar hybrid mini-grid, that's my expertise, but just to brief on the other ones. So the standalone solar home systems is deployment of solar home systems to communities, off-grid or underserved communities around the country. The energizing education program is providing captive power to solutions to federal universities around the country. Energy efficient equipment and productive use is providing productive use equipment to mini-grid to ensure their sustainability and their economic viability. And technical assistance is an in-house growth of capacity within the country. So the solar hybrid mini-grid component is comprised of 3 main funding windows. We have the performance-based grant, which I manage. We have the minimum subsidy tender and the COVID-19 and beyond. So each one is a funding window in which we use to deploy mini-grids around the country. So the first one, performance-based grant, is done on a rolling basis and it's open to any developer at any time. It's not time-based. And what happens in this is that we evaluate projects that are identified and verified by developers using our technical specifications that we provide for them. And for the minimum subsidy tender, it's a competitive tender in which we carried out verifications within the REA, verifications and sensitized communities. And we packaged all the communities we did into lots and we're tendering out to developers. And the COVID-19 and beyond was brought about as a response to the COVID pandemic, which started in 2020. And it's the provision of solar solutions to 100 treatment isolation centers, and further down the line, 400 PHCs and the surrounding communities. So that's also kicked off. So the target for the mini-grid within the program is to power under the MSD, the minimum subsidy tender, 403 sites. For the whole program as a whole, target 405,000 households, 50,000 MSMEs, 100 treatment isolation centers, and 400 PHCs and their surrounding communities. So this is just a brief snapshot as what's been able to achieve so far under the program. So we're able to establish 67 mini-grids around the country, totaling 28,524 connections, 638 of which are MSMEs. 142,620 Nigerians have been electrified under the program. 5 megawatts has been installed, all solar hybrid systems. 78 developers are currently under our program, and we've been able to sign 224 agreements. 260 communities have been sensitized so far, with many coming up. And we have a current pipeline of 150,766 from the agreement signed. So there's still more coming up within the project. And all this is from off-grid, unserved communities. So, but we also take in interconnected and underserved communities. So we're expecting much more to pop up. So this is just one of the ways that the country is trying to bridge the gap in the deficits amongst many different projects that are coming, are welcome. So that's it for me. I'll take questions during the Q&A. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Hadiza. So without much ado, I think I would go straight to our third speaker, who would be Ms. Katarina Omelin from the African Greentec. Katarina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Moses. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Katarina, and I'm a Senior International Business Development Manager at Africa Greentec. And I was leading Africa Greentec's part in the consortium that Moses presented earlier. So our role as Africa Greentec was to bring in the experience of implementing mini-grids on the ground, and also supplying the solar or PV technologies within the concept that we developed. And within my presentation, I would like to do two things. Firstly, I would like to give you an insight into the renewable energy technologies that we at Africa Greentec have developed, which form the basis for the plug-and-play microgrid, and also to explore with you 3 different demo sites that we are planning to implement with the RePower concept in Senegal, Niger, and Madagascar. So to the first part, let's have a look at the RePower plug-and-play microgrid. Moses already presented the concept to you, and I would like to focus on the part of the PV panels, as well as the solar water pumps. So on this slide, you can see the solar Tena Amali, which was developed by Africa Greentec in 2016. It is a mobile solar power plant with a high capacity of 50 kilowatt peak. And with the solar Tena, we can provide electricity via smart meters to up to 400 households, 40 SMEs, and 10 institutions such as schools or hospitals. And within the RePower concept that we developed, we combined this solar Tena with a unique BCHP system, which will be introduced by our latest speaker. The advantages of the RePower solar Tena is that it can improve the renewable energy generation capacity of existing microgrids that are currently being implemented by up to 50%, and it can also reduce delivery time. So because the solar Tena is a containerized solution, it can be transported easily to rural communities, and it can be assembled and can start generating electricity via PV within just a day. Alongside the solar Tena, we at Africa Greentec have developed various impact products. So when we started implementing the solar Tena in rural communities in 2016, we quickly realized that giving people access to electricity alone does not lead to the socioeconomic impact on the communities that we were hoping for. Because actually what people need is not just electricity, but using this electricity productively. So we have developed a range of what we call impact products, which are productive use solutions. One example would be a container, which is a containerized cold storage solutions in which farmers can together store their products in order to avoid the harvest from being spoiled, which then in turn leads to food security. So on the right, you can see Barandia, who is a farmer and a customer of ours in Mali. And he says that by using our solar water pump, he's been able to significantly reduce the amount of money he needs to spend on diesel, or what used to be diesel, and thus has much more money left over from his farming activities. And we have combined, or at Africa Greentec, we have combined all of these solutions within what we call a holistic impact site. And you can see in the diagram here that the solar Tena forms the core of this impact site. And as a plug and play system, we can complement the solar Tena with various products depending on the needs of the communities. So for example, the solar Tena itself can have a water purification system and can receive, or is a SATCOM system, so people can connect to the internet via the solar Tena. And if we are going into a agricultural community, we provide the solar water pumps and the cool Tena. So depending on the socioeconomic needs of the community, we choose the different products that would best fit the people. And this holistic impact site concept is developed by Africa Greentec and has been implemented in 5 different countries to date. So we have implemented mini grids and impact products in Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Madagascar. And what the core of what we at Africa Greentec do is producing or helping people achieve their socioeconomic development. So we are really proud to have provided access to electricity to 25,000 people to date, to also have saved up to 3,500 tons of CO2 from being emitted if the same amount of electricity was to be generated by diesel generators, and to have empowered 900 small and medium-sized businesses. So having presented to you the technologies that the RePower concept was based on, I now want to introduce to you 3 demo sites which we developed as a consortium in which we are going to implement these technologies. And the aim of the demo sites is that they have different climatic conditions so that we can test the technologies, such as the battery capacity, within different countries to perfectly adapt it to the local conditions. And the 3 demo sites are in Niger and Senegal and Madagascar. And apart from a mini grid, all 3 demo sites will be equipped with 40 solar streetlights, as well as 30 solar water pumps. So let's have a look at the first demo site, which will be implemented in Niger. And this is a business-to-business model. So the idea is that we would implement 2 solar containers, and they would, in the community of Dabaga, and there's a big market in Dabaga because it is located on the transatlantic, trans-Saharan trade route. So the idea is that the solar containers would electrify the market, which would then allow the 230 stores along the market to receive electricity, which would then in turn hopefully generate entrepreneurship and employment and also further income generation. Also, of course, we would not only generate electricity or connect the market to the solar container, but also the households, so that the positive impact on the community would be holistic. Our second case study community or demo site would be in Madagascar in the community of Ferrahana. As you can see, it is located in the center of the country, close to the capital, and yet there is no grid available, national grid available, and the community currently does not have access to electricity at all. Ferrahana is a predominantly rice producing area, so there are a lot of farmers in the area. And it has up to 6,500 inhabitants. So with 2 solar containers from AGT, which would be connected to a BCHP system for mesh, which our latest speaker, Rohit, will introduce later, we would be providing electricity to all these people. And thus 600 households would be able to use light, to charge their phones, to use cooling, like fridges, etc., etc. And our hope would be that by providing productive use equipment, the farmers could process their food through machines such as rice hulling machines, and could thus again generate an additional income. And our last community where we would like to implement a demo site is located in Senegal. It is in northern Senegal and is called Namarel. And in Namarel, our local subsidiary company, Africa Greentec Senegal, has had contact with a cattle farming cooperative called Adena. The farming cooperative combines loads of different households within the area, and together they own around 60,000 cows. And they are planning to build a production site of around 15,000 square meters, where they would be able to process foods and, for example, produce milk or produce yogurt in order to sell that. So together with the community and with the cooperative, Africa Greentec Senegal has developed a concept where we would electrify this milk production site with 4 solar container RePower units. This is the largest demo site that we have planned. and it would which has an energy demand of 450 kilowatt hours per day. Again, we would also implement not only the solar tainer, but also a cool tainer, helping the cooperative to store their different produce, which would hopefully dramatically reduce food loss. So these are the 3 demo sites where we have planned to implement our RePower solar tainer. And I would now hand over to Rohit, who will introduce the latest or the last component of the concept, which is the DCHP system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katarina. I think, yes, you've already said it. So Rohit?
Yeah, I think
we hand over to you now to present the CHP part of it.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Rohit. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Mashmakes. We are an Indo-Danish Greentec company. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give you some context of why CHP through biomass. The map on the left shows the above ground biomass availability in Africa. And I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, it is pretty substantial. But what also happens is in the map, in the graph that Moses had shown earlier, there was biomass and other waste that was a part of the energy mix, but the way that it is used in burning, sort of for cooking needs and thermal needs, it's not the cleanest form, and yeah, that's why there's a need for proper renewable technologies that need to intervene when it comes to handling of such biomasses. On the top right, it's just another stubble burning happening. This is in India, but it's the same case in many parts of Africa. Here you see the image down below. This is from Nigeria. These are active sites of stubble burning, and these are some satellite sort of maps, basically, that were collected over time. And Nigeria is one of the better mapped countries, and that's why, for reference, I'm only showing Africa. But yeah, it's wherever there's agriculture, there is stubble burning in these developing economies, and that's where interventions like ours come into play. So yeah, I mean, the solution is it's pretty straightforward: bioenergy or biomass-based energy, and it goes pretty like there are many parallels that can be drawn from the existing fossil-based energy systems, and it's so you have your carbon in the air that is taken up by your plants, by your crops, and so on. And then once that biomass is harvested or processed, one part of it is it of course goes as cash and food crops that go for sustaining our livelihoods, and the other parts can then be sent to CHP plants like ours, and then heat or electricity can be produced and then sent into any local grids or used on site. I mean, how are these microgrids sort of, how does it look like, and how and where do we place ourselves? I would say we have a direct AC output. So you have your PV systems on the right, along with your battery banks, and because they have a DC output, there just needs to be a converter. And then here on the left hand side, we have biomass, which is collected, transported, and then processed in our so here it's written 2-stage gasifier, but it is one of our solutions. And then yeah, it basically serves power to the community. So coming to Mashmakes, we say we do all sorts of waste, but In particular, our focus is on agricultural and agro-processing residues. So here you see on the left-hand side, we do everything from sugarcane leaves, bagasse, to algae from the oceans, dried sewage sludge, pig manure, you name it. We've worked with over 40 plus feedstocks, including troublesome feedstocks such as water hyacinth, and we are able to process it in our technology platform. Here you see one of our solutions, which is this one makes hydrogen, of course, but all of our solutions are containerized. So this is just a pictorial representation of it. So these are standard 20 or 40 foot containers, shipping containers that are essentially turnkey plants inside of these. And then on the right hand side, you have all of your energy outputs down here. And the common byproduct that comes out is biochar. I'll just touch upon it later. But all of our energy products as such are net CO2 negative. I mean, yeah, so the container on the left that you see is for power production, which is sort of the relevant solution in this case. And this is, again, a 20-foot solution. This is a two-stage gasifier. It's nothing but taking residues, agricultural residues, and the other residues that I showed in the previous slide. You take them to elevated temperatures in the absence of oxygen, and then you have certain outputs. So one of them is syngas, and the other is biochar. And then you feed that syngas, which is nothing but a mixture of CO, hydrogen, and some trace gases. You feed that to a genset, and that's it. You have power coming at the end of it. So this is one of our plants in Denmark. There's the cosmetics are different because of the weather conditions in Denmark. Because of the unpredictable rains, so to speak. But yeah, it is essentially a 20-foot container down here. And then our two-stage gasifier, this size is for 1.5 tons per day of input of biomass that goes in, and then you have syngas, heat, and then biochar at the end of it. And from the syngas is the most important output, I would say, because that allows us, like I said, can be fed to a genset to produce electricity. But there are many more things that can be done with the syngas that comes out. And of course, this is the best in class two-stage gasifier or gasification system that's out there in the market. It has a coal gas efficiency of more than 90%, and it has a very low capex and opex as compared to most other systems. And yeah, and the biochar can be used for producing activated carbon, or it can go into soil as a conditioner. And then, yeah, so like I said, the capacity is 1.4 to 1.5 tons per day of input, and the feedstock can be as high as 58% in moisture, because and this is allowed by our inbuilt drying system. This produces around 80 kilowatt net electricity. So this is after our own internal usage. So 80 kilowatt is the net output from the system. So 80 kilowatt rating is basically, yeah, and this is a continuous system. So you just multiply that by 24, you have your total daily output that can be generated from this. And just to give you an idea, it can power anywhere between 1 to 3 villages by itself, depending on what your thumb rule is for the size of your village. And then on the right hand side, it talks about the carbon negative aspect of our process, and that is allowed by, like I said, the biochar, which is the byproduct. So roughly, I mean, I won't get into too deep calculations here, but roughly 4 to 8 kgs of CO2 is sequestered for every kilowatt hour produced from our two-stage gasifier. So yeah, just now connecting the dots with the previous presentations, our biomass-based CHP systems here are on the right. And it goes with the whole philosophy, right? It's a plug and play system. Just like the one that Africa Greentec has, ours is also containerized. It's ready to install, and once it's on site, within 1 week, you have your power production off to go. And then coming to the case study that we were that has been planned with the consortium. It's in Madagascar, in Firavahana, and yeah, there are 6,500 inhabitants, and because of the sizing of our system, we were ambitious enough to aim for powering or giving power to 40 plus SMEs that were out there, and even more surplus remains that could be used for the rice mills that are present there. And when you talk about our feedstock, there's nothing better than the rice husk as a biomass-based feedstock for us. So that enables a good circular economy concept going out there. And and our system, because it's a 24-hour operation, it goes very well with a solar PV system, because I mean, when there's peak load post in the evenings or in the night, we can always support that, but also in the day it reduces the need for bigger batteries, so to speak. And then I mean, we have for any project that we go in, we more or less have a triple bottom line approach, especially in geographies such as these. So the first is we valorize crop residue that would have otherwise been burnt in an uncontrolled environment, just referencing to the first slide that I showed you. And then second is sequestering carbon in the soil for hundreds or possibly thousands of years, because through this biochar that we have. And then third is essentially remediating semi-arid or arid soils and converting them into arable lands. And again, there's also a circular economy concept going on here. And then the flexibility and compactness I've already talked about. It's in a 20-foot container. There's power on demand, and it is pretty compact. I mean, if you were to go out and look for similar types of systems that could generate 80 kilowatt that have a 80 kilowatt capacity or a rating, you would need around 5,000 square feet plus of area to do that. And we do that in 160. And then this is just touching upon our other solutions on the same technology platform. This is a much bigger system, the pyrolysis machine, and this is also containerized. Although this pilot unit of ours, we have not put it in a container, but it's still on a skid. So this goes into a 40-foot container, but the sizing is pretty high. It takes in about 18 tons per day of input. So it's not ideal for agricultural residues, but it's great for agro-processing residues, where you have a lot of residues at one site, and then that can be easily fed into the system. And again, the flexibility in terms of feedstock is there, but the outputs also include biofuel. So wherever you have existing diesel generators, a small amount of the diesel can be then blended with our biofuel to run those DG sets. So again, this is a stopgap solution. But what I showed you earlier, the two-stage gasifier, that is the most apt solution for microgrids. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that come. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Rohit. So we would now have time to take some of your questions. But before we go to that, I would just like to mention that our project was generally about developing these two components, the PV system to be developed by Africa Greentec in Germany, the CHP to be developed by match mix in Africa actually, and Denmark, and the two systems tested in the facilities that we have in DTI to make sure that they work before we then go out to the 3 demo sites to implement them. So this is the structure of what our consortium is about. We have 4 questions, and I think I would direct the questions to each of my panelists. The first question comes from Sally Manasra, and he wants to know, this would go to Hadiza, whether do solar hybrid mini grids require certain licensing and permitting? We know any solar plant up to 1 megawatt, it's exempt from permitting in Nigeria. Does this hold also for mini grids? So do you need licensing to establish a mini grid in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much. So yes, the NERC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, require you to register your system. So they have 2 categories. So if it's below 100 kilowatts, you can just register your system. You don't need to get a full permit. But if it's above 100 kilowatts, you have to get a permit from the NERC. Also, you have to get ESIA, and you have to have your site inspected by the NEMSA to get a certification of approval, basically, on your systems. But the most important is the NERC licensing.
Yeah. Do you know if this is similar in other African countries? So do the different African countries have different rules regarding obtaining permits? Do you know?
So I'm not really well versed in most because I'm with the government, but I do know for certain that they do have different licensing requirements.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. We'll go to the second question then, and this I would ask Katarina to answer. It says, what power capacity or H2 production capacity, no, this is for match mix, has a 20-foot or 40-foot match mix container have?
Yeah, so the 20-foot container, the gasifier, that's around 80 kilowatt, like I said, net output. But the 40-foot container, that's not the 2-stage gasifier, that's our pyrolysis machine. And that is capable of 400 plus kilowatt, from a 40-foot machine.
Okay. The next question I would direct it to Katarina. Sally Mansara again asked whether there is potential for obtaining heat and power from PV technologies, and do you find this useful in Africa? Or is it
Yeah,
is
so
there potential for this?
I've already answered it in the chat. So this is
you answered in the text. Okay, but now you can say it for those who haven't seen the text.
Yeah, so it's not something that we're at Africa Greentec are looking into, also because it's not a priority of the end users. Yeah.
Okay. And the question to Matchmix again. Is the feedstock to Matchmix free stock biomass, or is it pelleted?
For the 2-stage gasifier, it is pelleted.
It's pelleted. Okay. And any more questions? I think if biogas is used for electricity generation, what is the tariff, dollar per kilowatt hour, that could be achieved with Matchmix in the African context?
Yeah, so I would say it kind of depends on what the price is, or if there's a price to the biomass. So for instance, if the biomass is actually problematic to somebody and they are paying us to take it away, then we could go as low as 5 cents, $5 per kilowatt hour. But of course, if there's a price, there'll be a range between 5 to maybe 15 cents, depending on what the pricing is. So when I say pricing, it's not just the X factory or X farm price. It also includes the freight costs, loading, unloading, and those things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Carlos would want to also answer to this question. Carlos,
yeah.
From ATA Insights, yes.
Thank you, Moses. So, well, I can't really comment on the on what Rohit was talking about, the price of biogas, but I just wanted, to ask a more general question to all our panelists. Yes. So I think all of you have been working in developing these projects to electrify and provide services to those who lack them in areas that don't have electricity. So what have you learned in developing mini grids, in developing these self-contained systems? I think maybe I'll direct this question to Hadiza, since I've seen that at the Rural Electrification Agency, you have developed, if I remember correctly, around 70 mini grids. So you've got, a lot of experience there. So what are your, your kind of like main lessons learned from this exercise?
Thanks so much. Yeah, so lots of lessons learned. It's lots of learning curves because it's relatively new to the country. So I think first and foremost, we realized one of the biggest issues with deploying is financial gap, because a lot of investors don't trust the industry yet. So that was a huge gap we had to bridge. And that's what established the solar power program, Power Nigeria, which was the loan from the CBN and also further funding from other sources. Also, it's the trying to incorporate the many innovations out there within the regulatory industry in Nigeria, or regulatory commission in Nigeria. So it's working hand in hand with each ministry or organization, trying to incorporate different technologies that can help, because there's a set definition for mini grid, which doesn't really, which now it's expanding, but initially wasn't expanded too. So it was kind of limited our scopes. And also different, there's so many, I don't even know what's that. Also working with, for example, Ministry of Environment, ensuring that mini grids are, I think that was one of the biggest lessons, was mini grids are usually brought in as portfolios and huge clusters. So I was being able to establish like as many mini grids within a certification. So rather than have an ESI or region per community trying to lump together as much as 50 within one certification. So just ways to lower cost and ease business in the country and push mini grids.
Great.
Thank you very much, Hadiza. I think we're very close to our time, so I would give the chance to Katarina and Rohit to make last words. If you want to add anything to what you've said, any observations? Katarina?
No, not from my side.
Not from your side. Thank you very much. From Rohit, then?
Yeah, nothing to add.
Okay. Thank you very much, then, panelists. But what I should say is that the RePower concept was done before the Russia-Ukraine war. And one can now imagine what would happen to the electricity power situation in Ukraine when all the national grid has been knocked out. This can happen anywhere. And so the mini grid, the RePower concept, is not just for Africa, it's also for Europe. There is a need now to test out these systems, not only in Africa, but all across the world. And it would help in several situations. Thank you very much. And I would give over the closing to our host, ATA Insights. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Moses, and thank you to all panelists and to everyone who's been with us today. So, well, you probably already know, but we have recorded this webinar. We'll share the video recording and the presentation slides with you in a couple of days' time. So if you like this type of content, then go to our website, which my colleague has shared on the chat, and check out all of the other webinars that we have. Yeah, I really have, I think I find this topic very interesting, and I could have like 10 follow-up questions, but there is no time. But so thank you very much for being here today, and have a good day.
Thank you.